Maybe I'm the only non-native English speaker in here, so I bear that in mind. So I will try to speak, not sleep. I will try to speak very slowly and make my voice hearable to people in the back. And my talk is on Afrofuturism in Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead. Initially, I wanted to present a paper on the Intuitionist and Zone 1, two novels by Colson Whitehead. But I said to myself that maybe for 20 minutes, it is a better idea to focus on one book. And Zone 1 was published in 2011, and it's about a post-apocalyptic story, meaning that the world ended, and the survivors are working on the reconstruction. My take on Afrofuturism comes from this definition, and it was quoted many times in this conference event, and Dr. Anderson quoted the same passage from Mark Davies' story. And here I focus only on what is in red. So speculative fiction that treats African American concerns in the context of 20th century technology. And what I mean by speculative fiction is that when you consider a world that is related to our own system, but at the same time that is trying to think about what the future might look like. And he asks a question: can a community whose past has been deliberately rubbed out and whose energies have subsequently been consumed by the search for legible traces of its history, imagine possible futures? And here I highlight futures and past. So if we do more research on the past, what happened during slavery and even before slavery, do we have enough room and enough time to think about the future? And as if blacks are trapped into a time frame that is keeping them back in the past. And here I did not include it in my talk, but I'm thinking about the former French president Nicolas Sarkozy, who gave a talk in Dakar, and there he was saying that the Africans, the problem is they are not taking their place in modernity. When you talk about Africa, you only think about the past, and the present is so depressive that people don't want to mention it. To give a quick summary of Zone 1, the invention of the plague. In the story, there was a plague that infected humans, and the world has ended. It was the apocalypse. They call it last night. The event that caused the end of the world is called last night, the end of the world, and uncertainty on the next one. So we don't know what kind of world the survivors are trying to save. They are trying. This is the time of reconstruction, but they don't know yet what kind of value system they will have in the new society. And post-apocalyptic stress disorder, and here again there is a play in the story, in the novel, where you have one character talking about post-apocalyptic stress disorder and pronounce it past, and another character listening to that but not knowing exactly what he was saying, and he mixed it with past, with a T, like the past, history. And he clarified his ideas that it was his past. He was suffering from post-apocalyptic stress disorder. And you have two kinds of zombies in the novel. Some of the zombies are scales, and they are fast-running zombies who can attack survivors. And you have also strugglers. Strugglers, they are slow-moving and staying only in one area. If you were in the old world, liking McDonald's, for example, you will be haunting McDonald's for the rest of your time as a zombie. And if you like some other place, you would haunt that place. You cannot leave that place because that's what you liked in the past. And to me, the idea of having in zombies fighting humans, it's a way of thinking about what it means to be a human being. Because a zombie is not an alien. You know, it is a human being who was infected, died, and became a zombie. So what it means to be human. Post-humanism is the novel, and the classical definitions of humanism gives this basic idea of body and mind. For Aristotle, the essential human attribute is reason, since it is reason that distinguishes people from animals, and what makes a life is action. So here in this definition, you have the idea of reason being the essential part of a human being. If you take out reason, it's not human anymore. The body is there just to support the mind. And Plato used to be, or he was a disciple of Plato, and he placed a focus on mind also, saying that the mind is immortal, that cannot die. Descartes, also a French philosopher, he is known for his famous quote, which goes like, I think, therefore I am. So what makes a distinction between animals and humans is that humans, they have reason, they can think, which is not the case of animals, basically, in this kind of definition for what it means to be human. And in the novel, we find a critique of this way of looking at what it means to be a human being. Is the mind immortal? We ask that question because when you see how zombies function in the novel, they used to be human beings, they are infected, and now they become zombies. In that situation, do you think that a zombie has characteristics that remind survivors of what it means to be human? Is the mind immortal? Because they still function like a normal human being, but they don't have a reason. For example, a struggler stays in one place, doesn't move, but the scale can attack. And when you see your target and you attack your target, it means you are using at least some minimum form of thinking. You have to devise a strategy. You have to think about how to attack and what kind of thing you have to do in order to beat your victim. In this sense, you are thinking about body and mind dichotomy of what it means to be human. Survivors are losing their mind because of the past. And the reader is being presented with a situation in which survivors don't function normally. They are affected by the cruelty of the situation so much that they don't act in a proper way. For example, sanity is something that is questioned in the story. Some of the survivors found themselves using their own, excuse me for the term, but that is the term that is used in the story. You use your own shit to write verses from the Bible. So, in terms of sanity, at least reason is not there anymore. And they, most of the time, even the chief of the Reconstruction movement has committed suicide. You lose your mind, you are not functioning as if you are being in a situation in which you can cope with the reality of the post-apocalyptic moment, and you think that you better die rather than living. So suicide was an option for many survivors, and insanity is a way of trying to counterattack the definition of what it means to be human in terms of reason and rationality. In this section, I use a lot Derrida, Foucault, because they bring in a new way of looking at humanism. You know, post-human thought critiques humanism, but at the same time, it shows that our reality has changed so much that we need to redefine what it means to be human. Not only the body and the mind dichotomy, but we have also to consider different other aspects. A zombie cannot reproduce. So one function of what humans can do, you cannot find it in zombies. And most of the time, when the sweepers of the streets, they find zombies, and you go on top of certain buildings, you feel so lazy that you don't want to come down with the body, and you just toss it on the street. And when they toss it, the body explodes. So in this situation, you have certain kind of representation of what the human body has become for the survivors. The body there becomes a monster because a zombie is not a human being. And soup, the idea of soup is that the body becomes liquid. The word soup had stayed with him, Mark Speed, the main character in the novel. After one of the denizens of the wasteland had told him the story, people were becoming less than people everywhere. He had thought monsters soup. When the survivors, they do their work in terms of cleaning and sweeping the streets, the way they treat the zombies is a little bit reminding the reader how demonization as a process takes place. You have to keep in mind that in this situation, the political time that the novel tries to parallel is Reconstruction after the Civil War in the US. And during that time period, if you remember that lynching was a kind of social practice. And in this story, in Zone 1, the survivors, in order to have fun, they mutilate the zombies. Okay, so Mark Spitz here is trying to look at Mark Spitz. He is a protagonist in the novel, but at the same time he is African American. So he is trying to look at the situation, how these people are reacting towards the zombies, thinking and relating that back to slavery and also to how lynching was a social fun for many Southern whites. And there is also an irony in the nickname, because the protagonist Mark Spitz, we never know, we never learn his full name. You know, this is a nickname, not his real name. And the nickname comes from a white champion in swimming. So there is a joke in the novel on blacks not being able to swim. And Marcus Spitz said once in the story that he could not swim. There is a play in the novel that being black and being not able to swim, so there is a racial kind of joke, but at the same time racial representation of blacks in terms of the Atlantic slave trade. Because there is a story by Drexians, a people that is fictive, but at the same time, during the black slave trade, they were on the ship and they chose not to stay on the boat until they get to America, but rather they preferred falling down into the sea and then trying a new kind of life underwater. So if these blacks could have their own societies below the sea, it meant that you try to work on this racial prejudice or stereotype that blacks are connected with. I would just say that in the story there are a lot of kind of racial representations of African Americans being post-racial in the story itself, because all the misery of the world channeled through this concrete canyon, the lament into which the human race was being transformed person by person. Nor did this plague discriminate. Your blood fell instantly, or your blood held out longer, but your blood always failed in the end. They had been young and old, natives and newcomers, no matter the hue of their skin, dark or light, no matter the names of their gods, or the absences they countenance. They had all survived, struggled and loved in their small human fashion. So, the basic idea in this quotation is that social distinctions and differences is being eliminated by the plague, and everyone is just considered as a human being. And racism doesn't exist in this post-apocalyptic society. The problem is that when you talk about humanity, you don't consider anymore individual differences. If I am not black, my identity is based only on human identity, and there is this kind of problem that when you think about humanity, you don't think about human identity. Differences, individual differences, ethnic differences, national differences, they make up what is humanity, but human identity doesn't exist in itself. You have to be male, female, in terms of gender, or you have to be categorized in certain of social categories, or maybe ethnic categories. But a human being is not producing any identity unless it is related to certain groups. I will stop there, and maybe it answers any questions.